If you love me, you will keep my commandments. We can easily misinterpret that line. It sounds as if Jesus is shaking his finger at the apostles, saying, if you love me, you will do what I tell you to do. But what he's really saying is, if you have been changed and inspired, transformed by my love for you and by how I've shown you and taught you how to love, then you will naturally be that love for others. Remember, the only commandment that Jesus gives his disciples in John's gospel is love one another as I have loved you. The English language has only one word for love. I believe it has caused us to water down its meaning. You can love your spouse, and you can love chocolate. As C.S. Lewis explains so well in his book, The Four Loves, the Greek language, the language which this gospel was written, has at least 4 different words to describe what we try to cover with the single English word, love. There's storge, which is familial love, a bond through fondness and familiarity. That is the love a parent has for a child. And philia, which is the bond of friendship based on common values or interests. And eros, romantic love, physically embodied attraction and addiction. And agape, which is altruistic, unachieved, unmerited, divine love. For St. Paul, agape is the great love that is larger than your ego. It is your true self. It's not something you do. It is something you learn to live inside of. It is a way of being. It is a givenness for its own sake. It doesn't depend on the worthiness of the person loved. This love is unconditional, always present, and comes with no stipulations. Paul is not describing human friendship, philia, or affection of parents for children, storge, or even passionate desire, eros. He is describing what it is like to live inside the divine, where everything belongs, and feelings aren't really that helpful. This kind of love does not come naturally to us. Until we awaken to the awareness that we live within the great flow of this love, God's love for us. When we realize this, living this love can become a true, deep, natural instinct in our lives. St. Bonaventure, a Franciscan, described the Trinity as a fountain fullness of love. God is the flow, an eternal water wheel of self-emptying and outpouring love that knows it can completely self-empty because it will always be filled back up, as Rohr describes it. Learning how to love like that, to live like that, is really our life's work. So Paul says some pretty extraordinary things in his letter to the Corinthians, from which Terry so beautifully read a portion this morning. Paul first describes how we can do much that looks virtuous, but falls short if it doesn't come from love. I'm sure all of you have had the experience when someone says nice things to you or compliments you, but it rings hollow. It feels empty. They were just being polite. pro forma. But someone else might challenge or correct you, criticize you, yet somehow you still feel respected and supported. You feel that givenness because the criticism was meant to build you up, not tear you down, because it came from love. Paul then tries to describe the mystery of love and finally resorts to listing about 15 descriptions. He talks of love being the basis for all virtue. I would ask you all to sit with chapter 13 of the first letter to the Corinthians. It's such a beautiful, mystical poem. I think the most beautiful that Paul has written. And think about it. As Drew said last week, just a small shift in our perspective can make us see things in a new way. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Is really, if you love me, you will naturally love one another. And as Paul says, love never fails.